live. It says it's live.
Oh, yeah. I'll grab it here for you. Actually, yeah, I'll get it open.
Well, I think it'll be live.
Yeah, it says it's live up here in the corner.
Yeah, perfect. Well, welcome everyone to the chats before the Rugby World Cup. I'm joined again with Overlap Rugby. We're going to be discussing a few things. They might have some choice things to say about the Irish team this last weekend. We'll see what they have to say. And we might spend about 5 minutes just chatting about the New Zealand squad at the end and this weekend's games, especially with Wales going up against Ireland. Yeah. And then, but I think most of the time we'll just spend on the Springbok squad where we see they're going to end up for the Rugby World Cup. I've actually done some quite nice graphics. So
cool, very good. Yeah.
Don't think I'm really biased towards the South Africans, but I've been building up my repertoire of player profiles and stuff like that. So I'm going to try to show it off tonight.
Perfect. Go for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
But your overall thing from this last weekend
on the England-Ireland game.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Geez, the overall perception that I would have, I mean, there's so many process areas that you can look at. One of the big ones that the media have talked about is the lineout. You know, that was massive, obviously. Yeah. But I would just say it's just not being at that physical edge, not being at that physical peak, and just not making any plays and being very reactionary. And that's something that can be leveled at the whole team. And it's very difficult to judge where a team is at process-wise in terms of the line-out, the breakdown, attack, defense, scrum. It's difficult to measure any of it when you're just so far off the physical pace.
Yeah.
And that was something that was just ringing through the whole game. I mean, that back row, which was, you know, the incumbent back row, I think the first choice back row, Peter O'Mahony, Josh and CJ, and all three of them out-muscled in the contact every single time. I mean, Manu Tuilagi was running over Josh for fun.
Yeah.
And that was time.
They're also more of a tackling, like we see the team we've named this week, like that's probably the most tackle-oriented back row that we could go for, and yet just none of them were there to be making tackles. Like they were just physically nowhere near where they needed to be, which was something that was alluded to before.
I found that they looked tired.
Yeah. Well, like sluggish.
Sure,
yeah. I think the word Joe Schmidt used was heavy-legged, which is kind of the same coming off. Like they had been doing fitness work in Portugal or like as well, and like training in the heat the week of, and they'd also come off like a rather low-intensity match against Italy and then a 2-week break. So that's no way to prep for England, who had just gone back-to-back against Wales in much more intensity. So there was always that fear that we were nowhere near progressed enough to face an England team that were firing as well as they were. And that proved to be the case.
Be fair, like, how good were England?
That's the other side. England were like England. The only thing I could see that was keeping us in it was that Ben Youngs made a few errors that kept Ireland alive. Other than that, they were accurate across the park, on and off the ball. They were just very, very sharp.
I've been very skeptical of the Farrell forward thing.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see it work. Like with Slade and Farrell as the two distributors, Slade at 13 and Tuilagi at 12, they would kick it a bit more. But they kept the ball totally in hand for the whole game. And one of the interesting variations was that they had Manu Tuilagi at 13. And having him at 13, the effect that it has is it just sits the opposition 13 down on him. Gary Ringrose couldn't take his eye off him. He had to sit down. He was flat-footed watching Manu Tuilagi run short balls. And that just opened up the space on the outside for the two halfbacks, the two 10s distributing to just link up and get outside them so easily, because Gary's role is usually the Locanyo role of trying to shut down the outside, and he wasn't there to be doing that because he was marking Tuilagi. It was a great little variation, and it just worked all day. No, we were no match for them in any regard, and that like goes down to the locks. Like Ian Henderson was trying a bit to make some plays in the tight, but then just getting bullied by Maro Itoje, who was also marauding and everywhere. Very good.
And just the energy level of the players.
Absolutely magnificent on the day, Maro Itoje.
As he always is. Like, but when he's fit and ready, like he's so sharp and so energetic, and just makes plays all game.
He's so smart.
Yeah. This is it.
He's also he's in the very, very top tier of just impressive athletes in the game. Like he looks like an Olympian. He is an incredibly impressive athlete. And was making mugs of our boys for sure.
Definitely. I'm worried now about our Sean Klein option, because he's there to be a bit of an enforcer and a tight headlock specialist, and he was bullied in terms of that physicality. And then when you take the physicality away from him, I actually think he's not a very great rugby player. I think he's a bit club level in terms of his hands, in terms of his catch pass. He's there to be a physical guy, and he was not that at all at the weekend. So yeah, I'm a little concerned, but like of that with that specifically thing. It was definitely a worrying performance. Like from an Irish, it is doom and gloom here on the Irish shores. If you're listening to Off the Ball, it's all very much kind of rattle from pram. Everything's gone. We're all doom and gloom. And to be fair, shipping 57 points.
From a lot of like the commentators have been saying, have Ireland peaked too early, which players are in problems. I don't think that at all. I think it was just a bad day at the office. Me personally, I just think it was a bad day at the office. There was an England side that were just hungry. And
it certainly is a factor. Like England in Twickenham in that weather, sort of at this time of the year, prepped up the way they were with 2 games. Those are definitely sort of mitigating factors from Ireland's perspective. And there were 1 or 2 nice things at the start of the game. It was nice to see Rob Kearney, that is, getting a bit of counter-attacking play going from fullback and actually throwing a lovely skip pass to Stockdale for the early try. Yeah, that was something that we hadn't seen before. That was definitely nice to see. But
Ross Byrne, I thought his outing at 10 was okay, considering there was no leadership helping him. He was a young man on his second cap, I think, or third cap.
First cap. No, you're right.
And he was starting at 10 in Twickenham and acquitted himself very, very nicely, considering the pack was going in full reverse and we couldn't get a thing off. So that was encouraging. It's all just bits and pieces though.
And just the confidence thing. I thought like there were a few sequences, and considering the mental leadership that was on the pitch, there were a few sequences that were really worrying. Just in terms of where the team is at mentally. Like that when Sean Cronin came off the bench at hooker and he had an overthrow to Cowan Dickey. And that throw was actually the fault of senior player Dev. Dev was the guy who called that line out, and he was the lifter, and he was lifting Peter O'Mahony, didn't get him up high enough. And the ball flew over O'Mahony's head, and Cowan Dickey catches it and scores. And then the next line out, as a consequence of that, Cronin's throw is a lot less assertive. It's a lot more floaty and short, and that ends up getting picked off as well. And that's just an indication of how when one thing goes wrong, another thing goes wrong, and another thing goes wrong. And when there's no leadership, it can all just, the wheels can come off so quickly, and that's what happened to them.
And they are definitely fighting for confidence. Like based on 2019 at all, there are very few showings that we can cite in terms of the process working. So for such a process-driven team and such a detail-focused team where it's like you do this, you execute this, and this, X, Y, and Z, and then the tries over here, we haven't really seen that for a long time, and the players haven't seen that for a long time. So like when those processes come unstuck, it's very hard for us to remedy that on the fly for sure.
The one thing that I did pick up was I was quite when I was looking at the outside backs, and they were coming in, so they were using that on defence. So they're coming in defence, like how the South Africans come in on defence, outside in, and shooting up quite high, and it just seemed like quite a strange defensive structure that I've never seen before.
I thought it was basically that was like Stockdale on one wing does have a tendency to shoot in, and Larmour's a young man on the wing and shoots in if he's in doubt as well. But I actually thought that our defensive woes were happening far inside the wingers. I thought both of our centres were sat down all day by Manu Tuilagi, but Ringrose at 13, but also Bundy Aki felt flat-footed, and you had to stay there to shore up the defensive line, and then it just left a disjointed look where there was space everywhere, and England were very, very good at picking out where the holes were, but Ireland really did on occasion make it quite easy for them by the wingers, just making the decision for them rather than holding the width at all.
Indeed, it's one of those things. What we had said actually last week was that Ireland are one of these teams like South Africa and like New Zealand and like England and Wales who blitz in defence, and we actually, it probably has something to do with that heavy-legged thing that we were just talking about, but they just weren't doing that. So they were flat-footed, they were on their heels most of the time. Tuilagi and friends, all of those big men were sitting them down. And then when the ball got to the outside, you're right to notice Jacob Stockdale on the wing in particular. And I don't know that it's a coach thing, because he just tries to kill the play. If he sees that there's an overlap outside him, he thinks, I got to kill the play. So that's either I'm going to get into the passing lane or I'm going to hit the guy man on ball. But actually the practical effect of it most of the time is that it just makes it so easy. If he just sits off and drifts and sort of allows his inside defence to cover that space, there's some chance that England aren't going to get such an easy score. But by biting in like that, by biting in like that, he does make it very easy on opponents to get
and
scores.
That's something that was cited by our media even as he was breaking on the scene in 2018 and racking up a load of tries. There was always that exact doubt about that question mark about his defence, and it is a tendency. It's something that turns up when he's in an Ulster shirt as well. And to be honest, like a lot of times it yields intercept. Like he tends to get some intercept tries from it. He's got one against Scotland, one against Wales, and that's true in that way. But yeah, on balance, I think it is just creates a bit more of a fragmented nature to our defensive line and mistrust throughout.
It's not like, you know, your great intercept try scorers, if you go back and think like John de Villiers or Brian O'Driscoll, they picked their moments. They weren't just shooting into the passing lane indiscriminately. And on a lot of those occasions against England, they were sitting so deep and the Irish defence was so far back that they were under no pressure at all. And for Stockdale to be making a read like, I'm going to just sprint into a passing lane here, it's like, these guys are too good. They're not going to throw it to you. They're just going to make a mug of you. And that's what happened. So there just needs to be a little more intelligence in that.
That being said, though, I don't feel right in just singling him out, because I thought the whole system was askew, and he was just a part of that. Like, the defensive system was just not at the races, and a lot of that was our centres were worried all day about Tuilagi, and England exploited that very well.
We were losing every
well, like, this is it. Like, all of this, the back row forwards, we picked 2 tackle, like O'Mahony, Stander, and Josh van der Fleer. 3 kind of based on their reputations, 3 dogged, determined defenders, and like guys will go through shifts of 20 tackles each in games when they're on form. Did nothing of the sort, and we're losing contacts and missing tackles, and the whole line was becoming fractured from there. So it's as much as on the extremities, you do notice when wingers do like mad things like that, the problem tends to lie early. Like, the try was going to be scored any number of ways. It's just a disappointing when a winger just makes it so much easier for the team to execute by making that decision for them, rather than holding off and kind of forcing them to at least execute a player or manipulate him into the passing lane. But he does tend to make that a little easier for them.
I always know when when tries get scored through the pillars, you know, then you know something's not right at the breakdown.
That was my most disappointing one. There was the Maro Itoje's try, and it was Jack McGrath leaving Tyg Furlong out to dry, and it was very, very bad. Very bad play. Like,
when Maro Itoje is running straight down your channel, I mean, I understand the impulse to run out of the way.
Yeah, I'd probably run out of his way, but I'm not there as I'm not representing Ireland as a prop forward. Like,
but on a rugby pitch, it's not the most practical move, and that was just one of many.
Yeah, this is it. You know, there's a whole fog of English tries through very, very unusually soft Irish defence. And the one thing that I would think is the most salient point is what Dara made. Like, they weren't there for the physicality, and they just weren't. There was no grit in the performance, no dog in any of them, to be honest. No kind of appetite for the fight, which is what I'd like to see remedied this time around. Like in Cardiff this coming Saturday, that's one thing you can fix. And before we criticize things like scrum, line out, defense, attack, all that stuff is kind of a byproduct of the fact that they were just mentally not there to play a rugby match. Whereas England, and physically, like England were there determined from minute one and physical from minute one. And we know Ireland can be that dogged and that determined, and hopefully they will be this weekend.
It was one of those games where I was watching it, and actually in the first half, even when it was quite close, you got the feeling when England were in possession, like, this could be 50.
Yeah.
And then as the second half started, it was like, this is going to be 50. Can England please slow down? If they start knocking the ball on, maybe, or giving away penalties, maybe they won't get that high. But we're sure as hell not going to stop them, because it's just play after play after play. And they were you can't lose sight of how very, very good they were.
Yeah.
And with a guy like Slade to come back in the centre to mix things up.
Yeah.
Maybe Jack Noel is apparently a bit iffy, but if he comes back in, they have got a lot of depth, and they could get better and better.
And some size. Like, they're a very big team across the park as well now. They're playing a very English brand of rugby that's fast but also powerful, and with the right amount of deception. And I think they have options like that. Ford Farrell axis can work if Tuilagi's at 13 to give them that physicality and deception. But for certain games, I'd expect them to put shift Manu into 12, and I think more often they'll go with that with Slade at 13. It's a bit more balance to it, and it gives them more of a kicking option as well, and makes them a bit flatter to the gain line where they really want to be. But they're a very flexible team. I liked what they did with the 2 back rowers. They had Underhill and Curry, 2 out and out open sides on the pitch, as well as Vunipola in the back row. And then, like, there were steals going all day. Like, our breakdown was not well resourced, so you had Itoje grabbing one and Vunipola grabbing one, but those two were devils at the breakdown all the time. So they have a lot of options to rotate in and out, and they really are proper contenders. That was definitely a statement of intent for the World Cup.
It was 100%.
It was. They're coming.
Oh yeah.
What we'll do now, guys, is we'll go through the Springbok squad, and we'll just chat about the Springboks.
Awesome.
Yeah,
love chatting about the
Biasly, I'm going to
Springbok.
have to say that they are my team. So
Yes.
I may be quite glowing about them, but
Yeah.
Dar's kind of adopted them anyway, so
yeah,
he'll be glowing too.
My biasness.
That's fine. Yeah,
That's perfectly
we'll
fine.
try and temper it a little, but we are very fond of the Springboks as well, and like what Rassie has managed to do in his relatively short tenure compared to what most other sides are bringing to the World Cup is really impeccable. Like I can't cite a single thing he's done wrong in his entire time there. Really, like he's been it's been expert the way he's really had to clean house when he came in. Like there was a lot going wrong.
Yeah.
It's like rugby moves very quickly, and a week's a long time in it, so it's easy to kind of forget. But the Springboks, like this time 2 years ago, were really nowhere and like a shell of themselves. No identity in the team. A lot of really soft plays out of them. Really kind of dejected, like kind of like a lot of players getting excluded for reasons unknown, fans scratching their heads, and compare that to the squad we've now boiled it down to in those 2 years. The 31 men going feel like by and large the right men for the job.
Genuinely feel like the 31 best players in their respective positions playing professional rugby, and South Africa has such an incredibly large playing pool that it's so difficult to get things right. I mean, you saw our breakdown of England. Like we were talking about this guy and this guy and this guy, and that's always going to be a thing when you have such a massive player pool. But genuinely, I look through this Springbok side and I'm like, I don't know who I would replace. I think they're all. I think that the selectors and Rassie, obviously as the guy who the book stops with, have got this certainly in terms of selection dead on.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think they're giving themselves the best chance and bringing all of their good. Like at one point, I was thinking who's going to be left out in the lock position, but now I'm looking at they're bringing all of them as their big men, because there was a chance of maybe like getting another back rower in there and shifting Peter Steff to put him back as a lock, but no, they're going to bring all their big men, which is where they're going. Like it just makes a lot of sense to me the way he's orientated this squad, and I suppose we may start with the props as we have been doing, because he's opting to do what a lot of teams are going to do and bring 5 with one kind of alternate who can.
I love it. That's
very good. Yeah, like the graphic. But yeah, so they're bringing 5, and I think it is Trevor Nyakanye who he wants to be covering both sides.
Oh, Trevor Nyakanye can most certainly cover both sides. And he's been one of the great finds of the season, because I have been a little skeptical of his form in seasons gone by. But he's stepped it up a notch, and his dynamism in the loose has gone up incredibly. He's making tackles and carries and plays that I've never seen before from him, and a very capable scrummager, both in loose and tight. So he's a guy who makes it very easy to bring 5 props, as I think most sides have decided to go with.
Yes, I think it does free them up. Like I still think they're probably if they're going to just rotate them, because all of these props can play. Like even we saw with Vincent Koch, he didn't feature in the Rugby Championship, but then played the week after it and was awesome. And we've been watching him all season with Sarries, and he's not a weak link. So even if he's your third choice tight head, it's still a healthy state of affairs. So you can kind of rotate. They obviously trust Malherbe, and even the amount of caps that are spread around. Like Beast Mtoira is still, in my mind, their go-to Lucy in terms of a destructive force to throw in there, especially off the bench. I think he destroys scrums when he comes in off the bench too.
I always think, I look at him and you can always see someone who's got quite a lot of experience, and maybe he'll get a penalty against him, and you'll see the exact next scrum. He's adjusted his legs, he's adjusted his height, so he's just he knows exactly how to not have the penalty go up against him, because he seldom gets yes, he get a penalty as he walks onto the field maybe, but then after that he just knows how to adjust himself. Personally, I prefer him to start. That's just my personal thing. I just think Stephen Kitsoff off the bench, 30 minutes, just let Stephen Kitsoff go wild.
Let Kitsoff be Kitsoff. Yeah, I see that. I feel like Rassie's position is that Kitsoff will start at loose head, and Beast Mtoira, the older statesman, probably managing his minutes, they might see as more of a priority. And I think Kitsoff, Beast Mtoira probably has the edge on him in the scrum, but I think in the looser plays, Kitsoff has the edge enough to get the starting jersey. He's a great carrier of football.
This is it. Well, also, if you're leaving Mtoira on the bench, it gives you scope for either you're going to throw him in at 60 minutes or 50 odd minutes, and he's going to do what he's going to do, which is be destructive at scrum time, Or if it's going a little wrong and Kitshoff not having its own way, you can hold him off a bit earlier with full confidence in your bench man as well, which is really what they have when you're looking at 110 caps and Beast Mtawira. Like it's no problem to bring him in at any point in the game, even if Kitshoff goes down in the first few. You'd be confident that he'll be able to come on and do the job for the game. So like I think they are really, really strong. Yeah, I think the Boks are really strong in this area,
especially at the scrum. All of them.
All of them are specialist scrummers and pretty destructive scrummagers as well. There's a lot.
What I like is even from the bench, there's no real drop off.
No. It's
not
more
at scrum time, especially.
In fact, especially if you're bringing them after 50, 60 minutes, it's a boost of intensity because the guys are tired who are coming off, and the level that all of these guys are at are so similar that if you're going to replace a fatigued prop with a fresh guy, you're going to get an instant impact just because they're of that similar level and one guy is fresher than the other. So I really think they're strong here. They're also the Boks do focus a bit more on destructive scrummaging, and like a lot of Southern Hemisphere teams tend not to do that. Like you'll see it often in Bledisloe tests and stuff. Even if when one scrum has the upper hand, neither of them tend to kind of stick in the scrum and scrummage that way. And like the Argentinians used to, but their scrum isn't what it is. The South Africans are bringing a scrum that will yield penalties for them this World Cup. It'll be destructive, and these guys are they're all beasts. Even Malherbe, who we haven't touched on, he's a pretty good man.
Very tasty scrummager. Yeah. Very tasty. Yeah, I think on balance the best scrummaging prop force in the World Cup.
Yeah. I think from starting to bench, I think that's probably one of the strongest.
I think it's the strongest.
I think it's the strongest.
I think there are a few starting front rows, maybe Ireland included, that would maybe have a go at their starting front row. But as far as the five props that are going to the World Cup, these are all elite, like all very elite.
No, they won't be bullied at scrum time.
Not a chance. Yeah.
Well, now we go to the real important people.
Yeah. And I am just so delighted with this. I thought there was going to be a chance they were going to bring two. The fact that Schalk Brits is on the plane,
everybody's bringing three.
I'm delighted with. Like obviously Malcolm Marks, world beater, starter. There's a question probably going to captain if Khaleesi's not starting one or two of the games. He's an option. He's a leader in the pack.
Yeah.
So he's your nailed on starter. And I think Bongi Mbonambi has the 16 jersey as it stands. Just he's a fitter, more.
He's improved quite a bit this year, Mbonambi. I think he's been much sharper at set piece time. He's been much sharper with the lineout throws.
Yeah.
And in the loose, he's a weapon. He's got a good turn of heel for a number two, and he can carry for days, and he doesn't miss tackles. So another understated physical unit in that pack who isn't going to take a step backwards.
Watching that last Argentina game with Schalk Brits, the guys, what an incredible throw at the lineout.
Yeah. Yes. He's faultless. Yeah, he was faultless all game. He didn't normally do that. Like he didn't used to be that fundamentals man. He was more in a playmaking role with Sarries. But he was there as a captain and as an experienced head for kind of a second team for an off test match, and he stood up, and I think he got himself on the plane with that. Yeah, and it's great.
I wouldn't sleep on Schalk Brits' carrying game as well. He's got very good turn of heel. He can be dangerous in the loose, and I expect, given the nature of South Africa's group, you've obviously got that big game against New Zealand, but then you've got three probably really fun games. I expect Schalk Brits to have some fun with some of that lesser opposition in the pool.
Yeah, he's got a touch of the Dane Coles about him. He plays like a de facto 10. Like he'll slot in a first receiver and he'll either put a man in space or go himself. Like he's a real total footballer.
He's great on the ball. Yeah.
So it's like we've watched him for years with Saracens, and he was one of the head scratching exclusions for many years. You're thinking like this guy has an argument for being the best hooker in the world right now. Why are the Springboks ignoring him? And
we had the 30 cap rule.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and it is a bit of a shame for him that he's kind of just his potential Springbok career has passed him by. But that's why I'm delighted that he's going to this World Cup. Like I really think it is a good feather in his cap and very deserved because he's had a glittering career. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
He's a very happy guy.
He is,
lovely guy.
Big beaming smile on him.
I would say a great presence to have in a dressing room as well. Just a guy who's all about fun, heads up. He would lighten any stress load that the squad has.
And it's another good example of things that Razzie's getting right, because he may be the third choice of those three hookers, but he's there, as you say, as a presence in the dressing room, and he's slot in as your midweek captain. If you're going in Lions terminology, he was captain of that second team to face Argentina. He's just a really good, mature head who's seen a lot of rugby, played a lot of rugby in Northern Hemisphere. knows a lot of their opponents very well. It's a very savvy inclusion, I think, on Razzie's part.
Yeah.
Definitely doesn't hurt them. Yeah.
And not to bury the lead, but Malcolm Marks as the starting hooker is, as we touched on, a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
Brilliant in the scrum, exceptional carry game, and one of the great jacklers in the modern game at stealing
That's
ball.
amazing.
He's an incredible
He seems to be
poacher.
good for like 2 or 3 per game on average. Like he really does make a nuisance of himself there.
Yeah.
He's very tough to move. Like if he locks onto the ball first, it's so tough to move him. It's so rare that he gets shifted out of there. Even if guys like Brody Retallick hit him at full tilt, he tends to stay there and win that ball. And Bart, like there are sometimes the darts go askew. I recall it was a Twickenham last year that he had a ropey performance with the darts. But the fact that all 3 of these guys can throw mean that like you can rotate these guys in. I'd back him for the big games. I think he's going to be all there, and the lineout will work. He has some big men to throw it to. I don't think it's as much of a concern as people have tended to make it in the past. I think he's an world class operator.
I think he's worked on it quite extensively.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll move on to the big boys.
The size. I wonder what the collective weight of all these guys is. They're huge.
This is, I would say, like there are a lot of areas where you could point to South Africa being elite, and this is the area where they're most elite.
Yeah.
This is England are up there as well. Obviously, they've got great locks, but this is just an incredible foursome to be bringing to the World Cup with you. I would give a shout out. Obviously, I think their starting boys are the 2 boys you have up top there, Etzebeth and Mostert. They're the incumbents, and they have not put a foot wrong. Mostert is a phenomenal workhorse.
Yeah.
And Etzebeth, even like he had a reputation coming into this season, but the physicality he's bringing to these games is on another level. Yeah. That opening game against Australia out in South Africa, I think it was played in Johannesburg, was just an incredible performance from Etzebeth. And the Aussie locks are no mugs, but they were made to look like it by his sheer physicality.
Yeah.
But I would give a shout out to Orca Snyman, because I think he's actually he's probably the most skilled operator that you have in that game. He's a magnificent defensive line-out poacher and has really lovely soft hands. And when he gets going, quite a turn of pace as well.
I actually remember
they were saying he's actually the perfect impact player, because if he comes on at 60 minutes when the game's open, those offloads that he gets over people's heads are just
he has a touch of the just a little bit of Fijian element to the way he plays the game in the loose. He really does hold the ball in one hand and try and basketball it around folks. I remember, was it the last sequence of play in the Bulls season when they were trying to they needed to score a try, and he got on the ball maybe like 3 or 4 times in that sequence of play. It didn't end up coming off, but he ended up getting some crazy offloads away. That was just really impressive to watch. So as an impact player, he's absolutely awesome. Like it'd be just a terrible thing if you're facing the Springboks and you put in a 60-minute shift and then you see that guy trot onto the field and you're just going, what do you have to do? Like the physicality they bring in the locks. It's part of the reason, like the props we said are all expert scrummagers, but the engine room, like you can pick any combination of these guys and you're not going to be shy of heft in the scrum as well, which is very important. Like you don't want to be slight in this area, and the Springboks are anything but. Like even the guy we haven't spoken about, Diager, is also huge.
He's also very good.
Yeah,
but I think my player here is going to be probably Franco Mostert. The guy does 20 plus tackles a game. He's always up there. He's got that. What's the Irish?
James Ryan.
James Ryan,
James Ryan, he's similar in terms of he just gets through work.
Yeah, just a big engine. South Africa's fairly fortunate. We've got 2 of them. So we've got Peter Steff and Franco Mostert. So we've got real work engines.
That's very right. He's an awesome player.
There's a little bit of a dark cloud over Eben Etzebeth at the moment. There's some racial thing that's happened in the newspaper. So
I'm aware
with that at the moment.
I tried my best to look into it because we covered it briefly in the show. I saw his statement on it. It seemed like a fair statement, and there didn't seem to be anything.
There's no concrete
concrete that I could point to that the allegations happened. But I mean, it's for other people to speak on.
If something happened, then it must be dealt with, because that's just the way it should be. But you're innocent until proven guilty. So that's
exactly. Yeah, and I'll trust a man on his word. And his word was like, his response to it, as you were pointing out, wasn't anything like, "Oh, this was very out of character." It was more like, "This did not happen." What are you talking about? So like, I'll I'll trust him on his word in that. And Razzie seems satisfied with things as well.
Razzie, Erasmus, and Sia Khaleesi are happy sharing a dressing room with them, I think fair enough.
Yeah, that would be my take as well.
Leave it at that, and then, but yeah, I think we're very, very blessed in South Africa with locks. I think
definitely.
I think if I look at New Zealand and you take Sam Whitelock and Brady Retallick are world class, but I'm not. But the drop off from them is quite drastic. But the drop off to Achia Snyman and Lurt is not
that big.
It isn't that big at all.
Lou de Jager is like in any other nation, he would at least be in the 23. He's got to be feeling so unlucky. He's an incredible player, and every time he gets a chance, he's every bit as physical and dynamic as the rest of the guys. But he's just not quite at their level.
Reminds me a little of Ian Henderson, actually. The Irish lock Ian Henderson does Lou de Jager. He really does put in a physical shift when he's on the pitch. And it's one of those things you can select different ones, different kind of combinations for different purposes and get different results. Like there's no real drop off, but you can tailor your pack and the way it looks. You can kind of rejig it and rebalance it for certain tests, which is something Razzie has been good at doing, kind of managing minutes with these guys and resting a few guys, giving Eben Etzebeth maybe a 20-minute shift off the bench one week, but then having him start the next. They really have license to do things like that because all four guys are really elite world-class operators that you wouldn't really feel afraid. Like even if one or two of them go down, you still have Peter Steff in the squad, even though he's in the back row. Like you do have ample cover in the rows. So I think you're spoiled for choice. It's a luxury. Razzie definitely enjoys this World Cup. Yes. Onto the back row, as I was alluding to. There's Peter Steff up there, but then what a bunch of operators with him.
No other team in the world wouldn't start Francois Lowe in the form he's in. Francois Lowe is the guy just to start with, because an incredible poacher, great tackler, but a playmaker, a guy who comes on and makes things happen defensively, changes the game. If the All Blacks on a couple of occasions, after Francois Lowe came, were knocking on the door, going to win this game out in wherever that was, the Wellington, that game, and Francois Lowe made play after play
one
after
steal
penalty. He's an incredible playmaker and a Pocock-esque operator in that jackal role, and he's going to be kept out of a shirt by three awesome players in Khaleesi, Peter Steff, and Dwayne Vermeulen, who's just behind Billy V as the second best 8 in the world. I would say.
Probably it's up in the air.
I may disagree.
That is your right.
Now, look, for me, Dwayne Vermeulen is probably from behind Billy Vunipola on carrying maybe, but under the high ball, he's got very, very, very good over the ball. I think Dwayne Vermeulen's the more all-round player. For me, he is the more all-round player.
I'm not going to argue too much because we're just talking about two freaks, two phenomenal athletes. But Billy V is pretty tasty as well.
I think his offloading game is something that I would envy. But Dwayne Vermeulen's like one of those guys who's you think he's just a big guy, but then he's scarily proficient when he's on the ball. Like if the pass is on, he'll throw a 20-yard skip pass out to someone if it's on. Like he can do that. He's got an intimidating skill set as well as just crazy Springbok physicality that's being brought to that role. And that was another thing that was like he was a bit gone from the squad, I think partly through injury before a couple of years back, and there were all kinds of other players occupying the 8 shirt, and you were really seeing what he brings to the party just when he wasn't there. Because now that he's been back, he really does stamp that physical edge, and he allows the work rate. Like Peter Steff du Toit just gets through a ball load of work in the tight, frees him up to be a bit more kind of dynamic, a little wider from the ruck, and then you have Sia Khaleesi who can hang out on the wing and make plays as well. Like there's a great balance to that back
Khaleesi as well, another workhorse, but also a real playmaker in the loose, and a guy I remember respecting him so much during the Alistair Coetzee era. When everything was going wrong for the Springboks, Sia Khaleesi was still pulling out top class performances. And he took the captaincy role last year and didn't miss a beat. He's a really, really brilliant carrier of the ball. Is deceptively skillful and dexterous on the ball. He can offload, he can pass. He's a very smooth operator, doesn't often drop the ball, and then is as physical as anyone defensively. He has been pretty consistently in anybody's World 15 Khaleesi for the last few years. He's a brilliant player.
He kind of reminds me a little of what Dusatoir used to bring to France. You know? He's like really just a total footballer who's scared the life out of anyone playing against him, because he'll pop up somewhere and he'll pop up with a crucial score at a time in this World Cup. I'd expect to because he's a consummate captain. I really like the fact that he's captain of this team. I think that's another tick for Razzie. I think he got that spot on because, as you say, coming off the Alistair Coetzee years, there were so many people you could point to in terms of horrendous performances, and never Khaleesi. He was always, he was very often the last man, desperately trying to get across to cover the space that was left by all of his other men, and to see him under the post, kind of not quite out of breath, but just disappointed by those around him. Now to see him come full circle and he's captaining this great Springbok team
who won a rugby championship without him.
Won a rugby championship without him. This is it. This is it. He's sparked something, and the Springboks have kind of rediscovered something through his talisman image, I think, as well. And this back row is just really well balanced. And we haven't even touched on Quagga Smith, who had a beautiful performance at the start of during the rugby championship against New Zealand. I thought he was excellent. He was everywhere. And he's been really good for the Lions for the last few years. And he's probably going to miss out on the match day 23 for the big games, I think, just because, as you say, the other four are world class as well. And
you've got to rest your players for the softer games,
definitely.
Quagga Smith is for any of the betting men out there, he's a good outside bet for a hat trick against one of Canada or Namibia.
Yeah,
he will run through those teams for fun.
Or Italy, to be honest. Although Italy do have a decent back row, but Quagga Smith
would still make it into that side easy peasy.
Yeah. So definitely these are 5 pretty elite operators across the board. And you think of some of the guys who've missed out, like Elstad has been awesome for Toulouse.
Yeah.
Obviously, Marcel Coetzee, we were mentioning the other week, desperately unlucky to miss out again in similar circumstances 4 years ago. But those guys, to have them unavailable or not selected and still be bringing 5 guys like this, it shows again
to the depth of
what depth they have in South Africa. And I think
Jaco Creel as well.
Jaco Creel again. Sorry, they're missing it. Could name drop a load more players who are class.
Warren
Whiteley is also very good.
Incredible depth that they have. And even with all of those guys, I think they found probably the 5 best that the nation can offer. Great.
I know a lot of people talk about Sia and they say he's not a traditional fetcher, because obviously South Africa plays their roles differently with the 6 and 7. But I've always found him, he's superb at the counter ruck. He knows exactly when the exact moment to counter, and he just gets it right. Almost 9 times out of 10 when he doesn't.
Especially on the wide channels, he's bowled over rucks that have 2 or 3 opposition players in it. And you're right, he just catches the right moment where they're a little bit lax or a little bit not tensed, and he can destroy rucks, and he does.
There's a value that sort of stats oriented guys miss in just the value of someone who makes big plays in big moments, a real playmaker, a guy who gets the context of a big moment when something needs to happen. He's the guy who makes it happen, and that's what Sia Khaleesi is. As well as just a great leader and a guy that the whole team respects and look over.
The other player to watch, obviously Peter Steff, because the guy's got an engine and a half. But watch the people that score the tries. So watch when Cheslin Colby scores a try, who's the first person to hug them? And that's Peter Steff du Toit, because
he's always there.
He seems to be everywhere. He also adds to the aggregate height of this team by slotting in at 7 rather than second row, which is something I enjoy. It's just a very big marauding pack with good engines across the board. There's very few you'd cite for fitness. There's no one you'd cite for fitness.
They're quick, they're strong, and they're very big. It's a great.
I think both Peter Steff and Dwayne they're both line-out options.
Yeah.
Dwayne is probably a little heavy.
He is. Well, they sometimes
Peter Steff for sure is.
Peter Steff means that you have 3 locks, de facto 3 locks. Yes. You can cover 2, 4, and 6 at the line out easily when you have Peter Steff on the pitch. And to be fair to Khaleesi's easy enough to throw up as well.
You can do that either.
They do have options in that line out area, and providing the throws on point, I expect them to be very proficient in that area, because the other thing they do is aggressively maul sides. This pack in general do like to get a maul going when they can, and when they can inflict that kind of pressure on teams, especially teams that don't like it. Teams like Australia or even the All Blacks to an extent don't like defending mauls all day, and they're definitely as proficient as anyone else in that area too. So there'll be a big set piece focus for Razzie, but these guys are very dynamic in the loose too. They get through, as you say, a lot of work, and despite the fact that they're so big, when you look at packs like France tend to pick massive packs sometimes, but they're not very mobile, and you can kind of move them around. That will still be the option or the tactic that most sides will bring to the Springbok game. They'll be trying to move them around, but very often you're surprised at just how ineffective that can be.
They are massive, huge guys, but they just so happen to be the best rugby players and athletes that could also be picked in their respective positions. So just it's not a pack with many flaws.
No,
it's not a great pack.
Yeah.
I think South Africa over the years, even in our dark days, we've had we've generally always had really good forwards. So
yes.
Well, that's always been the reputation, like for the Springboks. Whenever you're a side facing the Springboks, you have to fear that Springbok pack. Like that's always the talk in the week leading up or the weeks leading up. You're going, how are you going to contain or deal with or match that Springbok pack? And very often the answer is you're not. But when you do, it always does feel like an achievement. And these guys have as much of a claim as being the best pack in the World Cup as anyone else. Like there are other great packs out there, but these guys are elite and they will be looking to go the whole way.
Okay, now we go to the non-important players. Now I'm going to
the ones who decide how much. We have little halfbacks.
So 3 scrums, 2 ends.
Obviously, Herschel Jantjies has burst onto the scene. I think he's essentially that bolter kind of role.
And
so
good for us to recognise it.
Yeah, I think because I think last year we were playing with Ambrose and Evan van Zyl, and they just weren't on the same kind of level as Faf, and because Faf he's amazing, but he can do some real stupid things sometimes. But he's improving though.
Yeah. Oh, I think he's the best 9 in the world right now. I think he has been for most of the season. When he came into the very first thing outside of a goofy Wales match in America, which isn't very important, but the very first thing that Rassie's team did was look completely different in that tour against England when England came to tour South Africa. And Faf was at the heart of that. He was brilliant, and he has continued in that vein, being a weapon off the base, but also just a serious distributor. His passing game is brilliant, and he just moves teams around the pitch and forces guys onto the ball. And when you've got a big physical ball carrying team like South Africa, having a really quick scrum half who can accurately pass the ball and likes to put it out in front of you is massive. It just plays your offense into the game and stops you from being sort of slow and lethargic. Like everything that Ireland were against England at the weekend, that slow, getting stopped at the gain line, unable to get it past 12. Faf makes all of that so much easier. It's so much less likely with this big pack because Faf is making sure they move around the pitch. His distribution game is brilliant, and he just makes it so easy for everyone around.
I also think since he's moved to Sale, he has developed a bit of a box kicking game purely because that is demanded of him in the Northern Hemisphere. And he did. It was less of his role when he was with the Lions. He was obviously exciting. He was at the heartbeat of that team too. But he has definitely added strings to his bow by going up north as well. He's learned to play the game a little more artificially slower. He can slow the game down when it needs to in the middle of the field. He can set up box kicks, set up exits that are a bit less frenetic. But he still has that switch where if he needs to turn it on, he'll switch it on and play at such a pace and invite those big men onto it. And it's very, very hard to contain, especially when you have 2 distributors out further wide. It gives you a lot of options, a lot of scope to play very different games. And he's definitely the heartbeat of the team. And the fact that Herschel Jantjies can emulate some of the speed means that he's been a key find, because you're right in saying, like last season when people were looking at, was it like Ivan Van Snail? He was branded, I think. I
saw a lot of those comments.
There were Springbok fans who were dissatisfied with the pace of play, let's say. And I think he's remedied that a lot. Because even Reinach, who is pretty firmly in my mind the third choice of the, and I'd say most people would agree with that. But he's definitely, I think, a cut above Ivan Van Zyl.
I've always been a fan of Reinach's, but he will suffer in Rassie's reckoning for that performance that he put in the reverse fixture against us, Argentina, where he was very loose, and he obviously had that bad intercept pass. Didn't go well for him, and that was his chance to sort of stake a claim at the bench spot. But Herschel's been on fire, and Faf is the best out there, so
I think you've got it rock solid there. I think even because Herschel Jantjies came on against New Zealand, so you're talking, that's a real baptism by fire, and Faf went off in the first 20 minutes. So he drew the game and he scored a try on the death. So I think he's proven himself on that level. But you're absolutely right. I think Reinach will be our third choice. He'll play against Italy and things like that.
And you know what? For a third choice scrum half, He's a very solid player.
Definitely.
He doesn't do a lot wrong. It was a poor performance in this one start that he's had this year, but he's a better player than that.
Yeah.
And he is someone who, if it comes to it, if somebody goes down injured and he does need to get, if he does have to play 20 minutes in a quarterfinal, he's not someone that I'd be worried about falling short or playing poorly. He's a very solid player.
Yeah, he's
I've
impressed.
seen him play in the Premiership, and he's sublime.
Yeah, the English are very impressed with him. He's been one of the talking points of the Premiership this year. He's been very, very solid, and he's kind of forced his way into Razzie's reckoning just by those performances alone his season. So the fact that he's third choice of these three there's no shame in it. They're like the two ahead of him are pretty tasty halfbacks. So I think they're actually going from another 180 compared to where they were this time last year, even, or maybe 2 years ago. Like these three that are going are not only rock solid, but very quick and combustible, very attrition. Like what's good about them as well, particularly Faf, but both Reinach and Yankees have a little bit of grit in them, a little bit of fight. Like they're not going to once or twice. Yeah. If they're lined up opposite like Brody or Talek and they have to make the tackle, maybe they'll get run over, but they'll try and make the tackle. They won't soft out of it. And
Faf's tackling game is incredible.
Yeah. He is a giant killer. I think he's branded by a few, like he's put in some massive hits on big forwards, particularly
guys up and throwing them back. Yeah. He's a very good technique. And when he has his massive, very strong thighs, so he's a great, if he can get the right body position, he has a serious little leg drive on when he will drive.
He definitely he punishes sloppy number 8s picking from the base. He's very good at punishing that. Like there's some number 8s who are guilty of getting a bit too upright when they pick and go, especially because they think they're going to swat aside the little halfback. Not the case with Faf. He will drive them back 10 yards and then into the dirt. So even defensively, I don't think I'd worried about these guys either. So I think they're pretty strong in this area.
Yeah, and again, recurring theme throughout the show, exactly the right guys. Yeah. Down to a T. Yeah. Razzie's got it right again.
Yeah. Because there are several dozen other halfbacks that could have gone if they were making those mistakes. But not anymore. These are the right guys for the job. But Faf is definitely the heartbeat of the team.
Yeah. Yeah. Will we take a look at the 10s then, I guess?
I think it's quite strange that we're only taking the 2, but I think a lot of countries are only taking 2. So
yeah, I imagine, to be honest, it's a curious one. If the 2 of them go down in terms of before they can bring someone else in, most sides are having to bring a third choice. Actually, you're seeing Ireland bring Gary Ringrose as 10 cover this week as a suggestion that they might just bring 2. Steve Hansen said for the All Blacks that Jordy Barrett might be his third choice, and the Springboks similarly, they could go with Faf de Klerk as the third choice. 10.
The Lions have played Faf for 10, The other one is Franz Steyn in the centres.
Steyn, that's right as well.
That's probably take Franz Steyn,
So that's they're covered in that position, but covered isn't really the word, because I think this first guy, Andre Pollard, is crucial to what they're doing. And like he has been in great form throughout the years, and at certain moments and certain patches when he first burst onto the scene, he was incredible, super physical. But I think right now he's actually at his most mature, best form that I've seen him in, just on balance. He's taking it to the line brilliantly. His distribution game is on point. His kicking is incredible, and his place kicking has gotten so good. He's just not missing, and he's sticking them over.
The fly of them, it's like halfpenny from a few years ago. They're drilled very accurately straight over the black dot more often than not. He's been very impressive, but he's won it like. The prevailing theme throughout this squad is I'm really complimentary of the depth that the Springboks have and the wealth of choice that Razzie has. I think that's the case with all areas. That like if someone goes down, if you get a knock to your first choice starters, you're pretty much good to go, good to cover everywhere except this jersey. Andre Pollard, I think, has to stay fit for this Springbok team to go all the way, because I think the drop off between him and
the drop-off is quite hard. Yankees plays a completely different style of game.
Yeah, he does.
Very attacking, not defensive orientated, because that's how the Lions play. They're just going to score more tries than you. That's the Lions.
There's definitely merit to the way. There's definitely merit to the way that Yankees does try and play the game. But I just feel like where Pollard is sort of an identitarian Springbok, he's very physical. He'll get in your face. He can run an offensive play like nobody else. But the crucial differential, I think, between them almost more than anything else is that Andre Pollard's a harder man to get at.
Yeah.
If you're defensively looking at taking on Andre Pollard, he's not going to take a step back. It doesn't matter who you have marking him.
Yeah.
He's either going to play it around you or kick it over you or charge through you. Whereas Elton, if you get in his face, if you make things difficult for him, if you start hitting him late, exactly, he can be hurt by that. Like your old school tens, he can be got at.
Yeah,
and Pollard is less
the
likely
opposite.
to be
Pollard more
way.
often, like the more he's more guilty. Pollard's kind of flaw in that game is that sometimes he tucks it a few to like he goes full. I'm going to play number 12, even though I'm at 10, and I'm going to try and charge over you. Like he has the opposite instinct. If someone hits him late, he wants to get his hands on the ball and hit him, which is a good trait in a Springbok 10, I maintain, because that little edge, that little grit is what really adds to his game. And when it's on point, it means that the Springboks are a tough beast to rattle at all. Very, very hard to flap or stop. And even like Pollard, he's deceptively strong in the contact anyway. Even if you hit him, you'd get the feeling it would hurt you. Like he's elbows and knees, and he's very physical. Whereas Yankees, you're right in saying he's a completely different player, but that's it in a multitude of ways. And that main one is that intangible of he's just not as tough. He's not as tough a guy as Pollard seems to be.
Yeah. And, that said, the little variation that they've tried on a few occasions of getting Elton on off the bench to maybe move Pollard out to 12 could
especially when the game's open.
Yeah, or even if the Springbok offense, as sometimes has happened this season, doesn't quite get enough plays off, and they're actually a little stuck in the mud, and they're not quite doing enough with the ball to maybe win the game. That's a little change that you can do to shake things up.
If things like, because you have Villiers at fullback and you have Pollard at 10 to start with, and those are two good distributors to give you access to the whole back line. But sometimes you're right, that misfires a little bit, and there's no real way to, like, if one of them's off form, that having Elton come off the bench does change the shape enough and give you just another route to the outside channels when plan A isn't working. It gives you a viable plan B.
Exactly.
But if Andre goes down in game 1 against the All Blacks, that's trouble.
Yeah, that's it. That's
I think I agree. But that's the one area where we don't have the kind of depth that like maybe New Zealand have from Beauden Barrett to Richie Mo'unga.
It's a question actually I have for you, Don, is who do you think comes in if one of these guys gets injured? Is it Willemse or is it Kerwin Bosch? Who comes into this squad if one of these guys goes down?
Rusty really likes Damon Willemse, and Damon Willemse covers both positions. I like Bosch. Gordon, who my father-in-law used to be on the show, he loved Bosch, and I think Bosch is great at attacking and all of that, but Willemse, I think, is the more all-round player by a long shot.
Yeah. No matter who it is, though, they'll be green in the gills. They'll be pretty experienced.
But I think Warwick Galant is very lucky to be in the side because Damon Willemse is not around.
Yeah, maybe that's right. Yeah. I do like Galant, though.
Yeah,
but we'll get to him when
we'll get it. I suppose we'll get to him in the outside back. But no, that's it. It is a good question you put because I don't know fully what Razi's answer to that even is. These two guys have been his guys for the last year and more, so they're definitely right to be the ones going to the World Cup. But pray Andre stays fit. That's my takeaway.
Big time. We go through to the centre pairings or the centres.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
I've been sort of keeping relatively abreast of the mood of the South African rugby public to some degree, like just checking comment sections of South African Rugby magazine and other shows, obviously, and other sort of areas. And there has been quite a bit of criticism that has gone into at Dale Lindy in particular and Lukhanyo Am. But those two guys, while not the most offensively potent, that's not really their job. The distribution is being done by Pollard and it's being done by Villiers
and Faf.
And Faf. Yeah. But these are the two best. This is the best defensive center partnership I think I've ever seen, and a lot of that has to do. Delindy has been brilliant this year defensively. He's been getting out of the line and he hasn't taken a foot wrong. But Lukhanyo Am is a freak in terms of defending the 13 channel. The way that he shut the All Blacks down in that game, right from minute 1, he hit Goodhue and then he hit Sonny Bill. Like Sonny Bill obviously came into that game a little cold, but man, did Lukhanyo Am shut him down every time he got the ball.
And he was wearing a bit of claret on his face for the rest of the game as a result of that hit as well. It was great.
He's got a freakish turn of pace. He gets into the right channel, and then when he hits you, you stay hit.
Yeah,
he's a really, really great defender and one of my favorite players right now. I think the secret to South Africa's defense and the reason that winger shooting up style can work so well for them is because they have such an elite defender at 13 who just doesn't let the ball outside him.
Yeah, it dies with him a lot of the time, and which is like, and that like he for the position it is, like 13 is reputed to be one of the, or if not the toughest place to defend on the pitch. You have a lot of different variables, you are the link between inside and out, and there's a lot of pace running at you and a lot of space around you. He gets out of the line, makes perfect reads most of the time. And you're right, the key point and the key thing that I think is keeping Jesse Creel, who has been the incumbent for many years, out of the jersey is the fact that when Am hits you, you stay hit. That is not necessarily true with Jesse Creel, although he does make good reads as well. But sometimes he gets bumped off, he's a little bit soft, the play doesn't die, he'll maybe hang around on the waist and the guy can get the ball free. But whenever Am gets up in someone's face, no matter, even when it's like the likes of Sam Whitelock, he'll pick him up and ragdoll
that
him
was
backwards.
incredible.
He's a very, very intelligent and physical defender.
Deceptively physical.
I agree with you 100%. A whole defensive plan is based around look on your arm. Doing the calls, managing the outside backs. He manages that whole back row, and he's such a smart player. He knows when to tuck it. He knows when to hold it in two hands. He knows when to duck and dive. For me, everyone looks at him when he missed the tackle on Boden Barrett, but you're going, well, he wasn't even in there.
He wasn't meant to tackle.
He did incredibly well to get close to making that tackle on Boden Barrett. Nobody's making that tackle on Boden Barrett from where he was on the pitch when Barrett got the ball.
No, he was covering the two inside men, and Pimpy was maybe a bit too hasty to shoot up in that instance, and then he had to kind of scramble around. I think people have been questioning this wingers shooting in philosophy for South Africa, and I really think if it gets outside it's trouble because there's space everywhere, but it's the fact that it's being shut down so consistently within it that you're kind of getting away with that, and you're allowed to add that pressure through the wingers because you have a player like Am on this. I don't think that system would work for pretty much any other top team because they don't have a defender like this in that channel.
Not to go too crazy on him, but just one other thing that I have noticed and really do like about him is it's so rare for a guy who's so physically gifted, such a gifted athlete, who's very quick, who moves at a lot of speed and plays with a lot of raw physicality, to have such a calm demeanor on the pitch. Like if you ever get a close up on him, he's just always extremely calm. Yeah, and even if you watch him on the wide, he's calm on. Yeah, if you watch him in the wide camera, if you ever get an overhead shot, he's always directing people, but it's always very calm. And then exactly when he has to be physical and quick, he just is. Yeah. And I just love that. He's without being too emotional and too reckless, he always makes the right read and keeps a level head. He's the best 13 in the world right now, I think. I
did see a little comment there suggesting maybe Frans Steyn and Am could be an interesting partnership. I agree that it could be interesting. I just don't know if it would balance as well, because I think Delindi in that defensive role really helps. It helps Am knowing that there's a rock solid guy like Delindi who's not, if Am's going to take the outside and force a guy back inside, what's waiting for him in there is no fun because you're going to get smashed by Delindi. Yes. And he's a big guy. Like, that's going to hurt.
I do like Frans.
You actually won't believe how much stick Delindi gets in this country. He could be the second. He really could be the second coming, and he would still be ragged on. And I'm being absolutely honest. We all, I remember that game against Ireland where he kicked and kicked through, and it was the stupidest thing I'd ever seen in my life, and I completely hated him. But since last year, I think somebody must have started working with him, because he seems to have calmed down a hell of a lot.
Well, definitely in this backline, kicking's not his job.
No, anyway. They've coached out his sort of worser instincts, and they haven't put a whole lot of offensive responsibility on him. What he does is he marks his men, he gets out of the line, he follows Am's direction in defense and makes his hits. Mm-hmm. And in offense, he runs at weak shoulders and carries into contact.
Yeah. He does that kind of Jamie Roberts straight line between the 10 and 12, and he does it well.
He does it very effectively. Yeah. I do like Frans Steyn, if I'm honest. And in fact, Jesse Creel, I've been a fan of for a very long time. But I just think that Frans Steyn, in terms of an extra option, might eke ahead of him, just because he does have that distribution element to his game. He does seem to be in very good form at the moment. He's hitting a nice physical peak. He has a kicking game, a passing game, just a bit more to him than Jesse Creel as a guy to perhaps throw in there. And Jesse Creel has been on the bench so far this season, but I feel like
I think we're looking at these centres. I think all four of these boards will be on the match day 23. I think for all the big games.
Maybe, there's an argument for them.
So no Elton on the bench then?
No, actually, because obviously they probably have France who brings in a big impact, and Jesse Krill's normally sublime in that last 20, 30 minutes as well. So, and he can cover wing. Jesse Krill is a natural wing. He's a wing that's become a 13.
Yeah,
so,
as opposed to the other way around. Yeah.
So I've generally noticed that's been a top combination when for the backs on the bench.
Yeah. It's interesting what Razzie's been doing with the bench. Actually, it's tended to he's opted for more centre replacements than outside backs.
Yeah, he trusts his wings to play 80 minutes, which not a lot of guys do, but there's merit to it.
Yeah.
This is what most people say.
Yeah. See, I disagree because I think the distribution happens elsewhere, and I think he's there to kind of run that line all day, and you're trusting Faf and Andre and Vili to be the distributors in that back line. So I don't know.
It's one of those things where he's a tool and he's not being used for that purpose. He's a hammer. He's going to hammer.
Yeah.
The Springbok offense uses him in offense as a crash ball weapon, and he sucks in a few guys. He does that job very effectively, and then Faf and Pollard and Vili link up elsewhere and try and make things happen outside him. He does. It's a simple role, but he does it quite effectively. He's not there to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, he's not trying to play like Curtly Beale plays in the 12 channel because he's not Curtly Beale.
Exactly.
He's
that's not his job.
Yeah, exactly. But I kind of think he does come in for more flack than he probably deserves. But then that is because people do you see him do the same thing over and over, and it's maybe a bit of frustration when it doesn't come off or when the try doesn't come as a result of it. But then even things like I thought this whole tournament, when it wasn't going right, I thought it was actually more on the books with Vili Leroux and outside him that it wasn't quite clicking. The system I still think is I would trust in, because I think when it does click, you have such danger out wide that it just doesn't take much. And I think these centres are so solid in defence, and which is something that Razzie has built this team on, because before he got in, they were pretty porous in defence and were taking plays off and leaking all kinds of soft tries, and they do not do that anymore.
Yeah, the biggest, of all the areas of improvement since Razzie's come in, the defence is unrecognisable.
Yeah.
They were soft and reversing and conceding all kinds of crazy tries that no top-tier team should be conceding.
Yeah.
And now they are
shutting down the All Blacks.
Impossible to score against.
Yeah.
Impossible to score. I look at them as a prospective matchup for Ireland in a quarter-final, and I just think, where are we going to get a try from?
Yeah.
Where is it going to come from? It's they're rock solid defensively, and especially against sides that play narrow.
Yeah, but one of the great things of this season is Frans Steen's return to form, because we've watched him. He came to the RDS a few years ago, back playing for Montpellier, and he was much heavier than he is now, and he was very beleaguered and a bit weary, and he got run around, and then he ended up got himself red carded for a sloppy tackle, and he just looked a bit checked out of the game at that point in his career. But it's great to see him resurgent and ready for the World Cup.
Top 14 and the nice food and the wine.
That happens to a lot of players. It really does. You hear at the end of a season that they've signed for somewhere in France, and then you see them the next season, they've gained 2 stone, and you're going what's going on?
And that's not muscle.
No, it's not muscle.
That's French food.
Yes, it is, and French wine, pre-training wine.
We'll go now to the real the outside backs.
The showstoppers.
The one thing I can say about the outside backs is it's pretty light in caps and experience.
You're right, actually.
It's also light in terms of weight. It's probably the lightest aspect of the whole team, but then what it is fast and deceptively powerful as well.
The Springboks have a great appreciation for what you want in a winger.
Yeah,
you want a finisher. You want a guy who, when put into space, when all your other plans are working, when Vermeulen's been carrying, when Delindi in the centre has been carrying, and then the ball has finally worked into space, what guy do you want to be there? The guy who's going to make a try out of it.
Yeah,
he's there. He's got space. Go score.
Yeah,
and I think all of them are a bit like that. Mapimpi, who has been sort of stuttering so far, but I thought he had a brilliant game away in Argentina to clinch the rugby championship. He was great that day.
Yeah.
And Cheslin Colby, you can't just run out of words for this guy. We've been watching him obviously in the Northern Hemisphere for Toulouse.
Just live in the RDS this season.
Live in the RDS.
Grabbed a try.
Even though he won the game, he was brilliant and managed to get a sensational try. One of the most amazing natural steps and turns of paces that I've seen in a bloke. And he's also
absolutely amazing.
Yeah, incredible to watch.
He's brought so many young kids in this country back into rugby.
Because
they want to see who's this amazing person that kicks and goes
yeah.
around people. So I've been watching him in top 14 for quite some time, and he's full on X factor.
Totally. And it is fun in that rugby way to have like, this is a game of giant men, you know, running into each other and hitting each other really hard, and then you have just this little guy running around making fools of them. It's great. And he's nailed on starter on the wing. And what I would say is that, not to be too harsh on Mapimpi, who's a guy that I do like, I actually think the other form winger in the country is probably Nkosi, who's a really slick operator himself. But he's just suffering at the moment because himself and Cheslin both prefer the right wing. And Mapimpi is really the only guy who prefers the left wing. And I just wonder, would it be an option to move Cheslin to the left wing to accommodate Nkosi in the way that he's been playing? I'm not sure if that's something.
I'm not sure, but then Cheslin does slot in at 15 sometimes for Toulouse as well, so we know he's pretty flexible in the back three. So I would like to see them give that a go. Like, as much as Mapimpi has been solid, I actually thought that if Gianti was to get back in time, that maybe Gianti would take that jersey straight off him. Obviously, that's not happened, but it would be interesting to see if Cheslin can do that job on the left, so that you can get Nkosi, who we didn't see in the Rugby Championship, but then in that game against Argentina was on fire and had very little right to score those tries that he did, but he got the ball down, which is, as you say, what you want in your wingers. It's something that we are constantly bemoaning in Ireland, is that we have like a very similar almost mold to what the Springboks want to do, want to dominate physically, want to hit it up, and then when it gets out wide, we have wingers who are kind of flanker come wingers who take it back into contact rather than take the outside and score the try, which is something that the Springboks have in abundance. They really
all
do.
Three of those wingers are finishers, and even Mapimpi, who we've been a little down on, if you put that guy in space, his turn of pace is frightening. He will get tries.
For sure.
It's very solid at the wings.
I
actually think that fullback, like, we have your wingers for finishing and flair, you have your centers as your functional physical guys, and your defenders, and obviously your two halfbacks are distributing, but your wide distributor in the way that this Bok team attack is the fullback. And it's a very crucial position, and we saw in the All Black game, Willie Leroux was really the cog that was missing for all but the final play, when he actually did make something happen to get the draw. But for much of that game, while the Bok defence was being magnificent and shutting down New Zealand, the offense was struggling, and really what was happening was Willie wasn't getting his distribution game right, and they weren't able to open teams up. So between him and Gelant, I think Willie is very much the incumbent. Obviously, you can see they're the most capped by a mile in that back three. It's kind of crucial that he's on form and he's linking up and he is putting guys into space. He's got it. And listen, if he goes badly, I think they shouldn't be afraid to give Gelant a start, because he has been solid so far. He can pass, he can move, he can slot into first receiver, and they do need a functional distributor in the wide channels to make their system work.
That really is why I think Gelant is there, is that he does. If you were to have him on the bench and maybe haul Willie off at 50 minutes if it's going a bit wrong, he doesn't change the system. He still gives you that distributing option from 15, and it means that you can accommodate what the setup is, which is robust, solid centers, but not really a distributing option. You're trusting your 15 to do that. I think Willie is definitely the incumbent, but it's important that they go right.
There's contention going on.
We're trying to give you two. We're not the South Africans here. We're in deference to you and your knowledge. But that's definitely our take. Is that Willie's job is to put Nkosi or Cheslin or Mapimpi, as the case may be, into space. He's the last pass man. He's the guy who's going to provide that final pass that makes all that great work become a try.
And when Willie's on song, you could see that offensive system look really good. Because I think you saw a glimpse of it in that very last play in Wellington. That was just a delicious little pass that put Cheslin into space. And because he's one of these great Springbok winners, that's all you need. Get Cheslin into space and a try is on the way.
Exactly.
And that's Willie Leroux's a key link man in that. And as much as he can be flaky, when he's on song, he's so good.
I think his confidence was not quite a lot when he was at that last season at Wasps. I think something was happening in the back room.
Well, like, Wasps has a terrible track record.
Wasps is actually quietly quite a toxic environment. You wouldn't recommend a player go there. They don't seem to have the right attitude there. And you're right, the guys just do seem to lose their confidence in that club.
Well, like Lima Sapawanga has been the story
Lima
this year.
Sapawanga
Went
the
there this year,
same,
and he's been off a cliff in terms
Yeah.
of form. But it's like, and even Christian Wade, who's now got disenfranchised with the sport. Brad Shields, another. There's a slew of players who've gone to Wasps and come away worse player for it.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. Especially it happens to Southern Hemisphere players, and we obviously watch a load of rugby, but you get the impression that like a lot of Southern Hemisphere, like Super Rugby players, probably aren't watching a lot of Northern Hemisphere rugby, so they're kind of in deference to their agent to maybe get them going somewhere up north where they want to play rugby. Someone should be telling them that, like, maybe don't go to Wasps, go to Leinster instead.
Yeah, or go anywhere.
Someone should be in their ear. Like, there was actually talk of Billy LaRue arriving at Leinster all those years ago when we ended up actually, it was Zane Kirshner came our way, but there was a rumor that Billy LaRue was going to come as he was bursting on the scene. So we were getting very excited watching him all those years ago. But yeah, he definitely did suffer that knock. But then Razzie and what he's done with this team, it seems a great environment to be involved in, and he's more likely to play.
He's more mature as well now. He's an elder statesman. He has those delicate touches, but he's not the guy who's going to make magic happen. He's not the guy who's going to be a superstar. He's there as a wide distributor, putting the superstar in space, as it were. Yeah. And I think he's more comfortable in that role. And one of the things that's underrated about Villy is how good his boot is on exit plays. Yeah, he's a go-to guy. Like if Pollard's a little off, he's got a really, really great peg. I think it's a left peg. It's a left peg,
yeah. He's a left footer.
He can get the ball from your own try line often up to halfway. He's got one of those freaky long boots on him, and he can bail you out of some dangerous situations with some solid exits.
Yeah. One thing I would say about collectively the back three is they're not that tall, so slightly vertically challenged as far as the aerial game. It will be a concern for Razzie, but people like Cheslin have been targeted that he's been targeted like that all year with no dividends. Like he's a small guy, but he gets up there. So it's like if you still kick inaccurately to them, I'd back them to counterattack. So it's a risk reward thing. But it is one area where just collectively they're not that tall. So I'd expect teams to try and target them that way.
I agree, and I think you're dead on there. Certainly, if it's like the likes of Ireland against them, or even Wales, I have seen Villy LaRue come off the worser against the likes of Liam Williams or Rob Carney or those guys who are so good.
If the game becomes about that, if it becomes a bit slow and it's all happening between 22 meter lines and it's up in the air and then out, that's one area that you're not entirely elite. But if it goes a bit too long, they're as capable, even with Haaland on the pitch, you're as capable as any other side to turn a loose kick into counter-attacking play and potentially a try.
Certainly they can counter-attack. Yeah, they're speedy and good.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to have to ask the big questions now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The real big question, the question that we ask every week.
Yeah, indeed. If you want, I'll go first, as I always seem to do.
Yes.
It's so tough to say, just obviously adding caveats before I start. It's so tough to say because there are so many teams, there's so many things that could happen. Things could go wrong for this side, same as any. But right now, they're my favorites. Yeah. They've got history on their side in terms of a nation with World Cup pedigree. Yeah. They've got the most complete squad with the most talent. They've got the fewest holes to their game, the best defense, the best scrum. And yeah, I just think I get the sense, no matter how that opening game goes, that they will see off their opponents in a quarterfinal, and then when it gets to knockout rugby, there's nobody better than the Springboks. A lot depends on Andre Pollard staying fit, frankly.
For one,
but if he does, I think I'm going to say my prediction on balance is that they're going to win it. I think they're my favourites to win the tournament.
Yeah.
So there you go. Your lovely answer for you.
Yeah.
Well, look, my heart honestly says they're gonna win. That's just me. But like somebody put it into context the other day. We were talking 15 tests ago. No one in their right mind would have said the Springboks would have even got through the group stages. So
this is it.
We'd lost to Japan, we'd lost to Italy. We'd lost 57-0 to New Zealand. It just didn't seem possible.
Yeah.
And I think, and like we're all here, everyone's really getting into the spirit that we want to win. But maybe we should just take the pressure off the guys and just let them play the best they can. And if they come back with a trophy, then great. If they make the final, then great. If they make the semis, then great.
Yeah.
They lose to Italy, not so great.
Yeah. Yeah. Draw the line right there. Yeah.
But then my heart always say, yeah, they're going to win.
Yeah.
My head says they'll make it to the final.
Yeah,
I think so too. I actually think they might be too good for New Zealand on opening day, but even if they're not, I think they'll see off whoever tops the first group. I think they're just too good.
Yeah, they're very well rounded. Such depth, such physicality. They have World Cup pedigree, as you say, as well. They've been there before. They have a history to it. I really don't see how it goes wrong. There's a few little. I did allude to the high ball is some avenue for success for other teams, maybe. They do have like collectively some lingering hangover from the previous era that has yet to be stamped out. Is sometimes on things like defensive lineouts or restart plays, you see sometimes collectively they kind of switch off. And that's been an avenue for Wallaby sides to grab very cheap tries against them in the last couple of years, for one. But it does happen. That's one little bad habit, I would say, a little caveat that maybe could catch
actually
them.
Of all, it's not something we talked about, but you did just bring it up, and it is vital. Is actually they're pretty poor on restarts, especially receiving restart ball. They give away a lot of cheap ball off that, and that's like a third set piece. It has its value, so that's definitely one area that they'll have to be aware of.
Yeah, but I'm literally just fishing for weaknesses, though. There aren't that many, so they really are, in my mind, a very, very, very much my favourites. If Box could win, I think, as you say, even if they don't, I hope they do, because I'm hoping that Ireland top their group and then that we manage to sidestep facing the Springboks.
I agree.
Because I actually think matchup-wise that we match up terribly against the Springboks. We want to try and play a forward-oriented, dominant game with a slightly worse backline and pack. Yeah, I don't see us matching up very well. I think Am would shut down Ringrose all day.
Yes.
Whereas against New Zealand, I can at least see an avenue for us to get plays off. So I'm fingers crossed you beat the All Blacks on day two, and then go marching all the way to the final, where you meet the unlikely Ireland, who are flying under the radar and managing to get all the way there. That's my dream.
That's perfect world. Yeah, we'd have such an interesting show before this.
We'd have to have a serious show if it's an Ireland Springboks final. Oh,
yeah, definitely.
I think the team in green will win.
Yeah,
that might be true.
Whoever has to wear the alternate jersey is
done. Yeah, that might be that.
So let's we'll leave it there for the Springboks. I think we've gone through the Springboks quite well. I think we've got one more team left next week, which will be the All Blacks. I think that's going to be a very in depth, because I think any team you have to beat the All Blacks to win a World Cup. That's just a given.
Yes. They're the ever there.
So they are the best in the world for a reason. They are the best. So we'll spend a good show on them. But I think we'll leave the last 10 minutes. Maybe we'll talk about this upcoming game, Wales against Ireland.
Oh, okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's an interesting game in the sense that when we covered it on the show yesterday, we had Ireland's team. They had leaked, but we hadn't known what Wales were going to do.
Yeah.
And Wales have actually gone with quite an experimental team. Wales are putting together.
Yeah. It's the last game for both of these teams before they finalise their 31-man squad.
Exactly.
So that's what gives scope for a bit of change. And like Ireland have gone with a wholesale change themselves, as far as just even the structure of the team is very different to what we're used to from this Ireland side. But Wales as well are even though it's at home, they're trying a few different things.
Yeah, both of these sides finalising their squads. But I actually quite like the Ireland team this week, obviously coming off God knows what a lack of confidence. But they've got the all-Munster front row, who are very proficient, very solid operators, and quite underrated, if I'm honest. Very good scrummagers.
Yeah.
And it'll be a good test, because Samson Lee is out on the pitch for Wales. So him against Dave Kilcoyne will be a great battle in the scrum. Obviously getting James Ryan back is great. That's going to give us much more physicality. Yeah, but the real interesting story is what's going on in the back row. They've brought in Peter O'Mahony they've moved him to open side to bring in Tyg Byrne, who's a real breakdown operator, who's going to come in at 6, and Jack Conan, who's a guy who I know
I'm calling for. Yeah, no, he's a ball playing number 8. Yeah, so it's a far more mobile, very pacey back row, in fact, and it's quite a different structure to what we've seen from Joe Schmidt's Ireland. There's they're a bit less of a bits and pieces back in row and more kind of high flying, pacey kind of operators. And then couple that with the halfbacks who are Connacht's halfbacks, Marmion and Carty. And Connacht, if you watch them play at all, tend to play quite a wide game, move the ball very quickly. So it seems the intent is to attack. Because we have Addison as well getting his first start at 15.
Yeah. Will Addison is a guy who I'm sure you wouldn't be massively familiar with. He's got, I think, 1 or 2 caps.
Yeah.
But what he is, he's been a 13, but he's moved into fullback for this game. He's going to be playing against Wales, and he's much looser than your average Ireland back. He plays with speed. He throws the ball around. He's a guy who's looking to inject pace and speed into our attack.
Okay.
And that's exciting. The 2 wings, Stockdale and Conway,
are the 2 form wingers.
The 2 form wingers. Yeah. So it's more of a form side, and it's probably going to be playing a little more open rugby.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes in the Lions' Den in Cardiff.
Yes. Wales are formidable. They're going to try and slow our ball down, absolutely, with their back rows. They have James Davis getting a run out, which you've been calling for ages.
Big opportunity. One more chance for James Davis to make.
But then similarly, Navidi at 8 is very fast, and Shingler covers ground quickly as well. Like it's a good battle in that back row. And if Wales succeed, as they usually do in Cardiff, at slowing us down, I don't know how elite our catch pass is these days. It's been very painful viewing as Irish fans, watching us try to get the ball from one side of the pitch to the other a lot of the time, because we've been devoid of rhythm all year, really. What was great about 2018, even though we were playing not an expansive game, but there was a flow and a tempo that was not quick or slow, but very deliberate, and it had a rhythm to it. Whereas I have seen none of that all year, really. Like we got a little bit of it going against France, but in the Six Nations, but not really. Like it was still a bit of a stuttery performance, and they are a side lacking in confidence, and it would be good to have them get a few plays off, even if it's in a losing effort. Try a few things, throw a few passes, have some things come off, have some things not come off, and see where the chips lie. It's definitely an exciting team. Try something, essentially, because if you're playing a game plan that's based on winning contacts and collisions, and then you're not winning contacts and collisions, and then you're prohibiting what are creative enough centers and players outside of them, like excluding them from having the pass because we want to go through ruck and phase after phase. If you're doing
you got to have somewhere to go when the game's going wrong. And it's one of the things that I noticed in that England game is when we started losing collisions, you could see in the latter half of the game they were trying to sort of exit by spinning the ball, but they weren't really getting a lot off. So it'd be nice to see that as an improvement for sure.
For sure. Yeah, but also I'd expect, as we were alluding to earlier on, just a bit more meanness in the performance, which is something like it's happened a few times this year. We've seen the All Blacks did it. The difference between Bledisloe 1 and Bledisloe 2 was night and day.
And it was like meanness.
And it was like a lot of the processes went wrong. You can point to individual lineouts and scrums that were disastrous and maybe say that was the problem in the first test. But really, it was more collective than that. It was all of them weren't really present where they should have been, both physically and mentally, weren't where they should have been for the fight. And that's the main thing that I'd like to see turn around this time in Cardiff. Even if we were to lose the game, which I expect we probably will, because it's Cardiff, we're not favourites. But I would like to see a bit more dog in the performance and a bit more grit and a bit more meaning.
Much bigger improvement.
Yes. Yeah, just intensity.
From Wales's perspective, actually, it's quite a fun team they've named, in the sense that obviously a lot of their big players are missing. There's no Tipperick, no Alan Wynne. But what they have done is they've given a lot of fringe guys a chance at making the squad. Which means, with a team that's high on confidence, getting some change strips in for the home game, which isn't often what teams would do at home. They want to win and secure the win there. But what they've done is got a bunch of guys in who are on the fringes and incentivize them to perform.
You can see that throughout the whole team.
Bradley Davis could not make the squad. He's starting at lock. Aaron Shingler could not. He's starting in the back row. We're still live, are we?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we're still live, I think. Yeah.
I'll keep going.
Yeah.
Aaron Shingler in the back row, he could not make the squad. James Davis, Aled Davis, even Jared Evans at 10 is going to get his first go. It's very experimental.
The 2 centres.
I'm very happy to see Steph Evans on the wing as well.
Yeah.
Our audio's cut off.
Our audio has cut off there. I don't know. Yeah. Can't hear a thing.
Just keep mentioning it in case we're on.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you can hear us, Don, but we can't see or hear you right now.
Yeah. Oh, it's buffering. We're getting back. Hello. Sorry, I don't know if we cut off there, but we definitely lost you.
Yeah.
And I think I had a something went just my internet just went very, very strange, very, very quickly. I was quite sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, there was a panic there, but where we were basically just saying that there's basically little duels going on throughout this whole team, like the center pairing, Owen Watkin and Scott Williams. It's likely that only one of those guys is on the plane, and it's probably depending a lot on this performance, like who's going to stand up and make the plane. So it's interesting from Wales' perspective in that sense. Like throughout the whole team, you have little mini battles for a space on the plane.
So it's got that sort of depth factor to it where everybody is incentivized to play their very heart out. The team are already so well drilled and know what they're doing. And if you put a foot wrong, you're not going to be one of the guys who makes it. So it's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm especially excited for the likes of that Scarlets team from 2018 that were so good. James Davis is getting a run out. Steph Evans is getting a run out. Scott Williams is getting a run out. Reece Patchell is on the bench.
Yeah.
They were all really, really great players who I'd love to see make the plane, and I'm excited to see them have a go at it. But obviously, for partisan reasons, would rather see them lose than win. But it's an exciting Welsh team.
It is,
no question, and a real challenge for Ireland.
Yeah.
I expect quite an open game, actually.
I think this is
kind
of one of the things that you do get out of these warm-up games, where this is a look that you'd never see if these teams were to meet in the Six Nations, as they always do. These are two teams that would never be named in that context. So they were going to play a different kind of rugby than both of these teams would bring to the Six Nations. So definitely excitement in that end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we gone again?
I think we're gone again. Damn. Sorry to all those watching online. If we're
just going to make sure if we are still live.
Well, it says we're still live up in the corner. Ooh.
Actually,
see if there's any more chat.
Our machine is.
Yeah, I can still hear you all, by the way.
Thanks. 2 cents just telling us that he can still hear us.
Well, that's good. Okay. We're just getting a little buffery, jumpy. Okay. But yeah, I suppose predictions
for the game, I guess we can riff off, can we?
Yeah. Probably Wales.
Probably Wales.
Statistically probable that it is going to be Wales.
It is indeed.
I'd love if it weren't, though. It would be great if we could nick a win.
Yeah, I'm not sure how important the result is. It's just vitally important that Ireland get to a physical place where they can compete with Wales, get some plays off, and get
defense
on
either side of the ball, get some plays off. Yeah, get the set piece. It's not like right for one thing, but just nowhere near as catastrophically wrong in another as well. Yeah. So yeah, all of that is important learnings from the game. But mainly, I think it will be a bit more of an open one and exciting in Cardiff, which will be good because it'll be loud as well. If the England one's anything to go off, it'll be loud and full as well. And the buffering bar is in Don's place.
Yeah, we're hopefully going to get Don back soon enough, but we are
just riffing
close enough to ending this.
I think we are. We're only waiting for Don to get back to say fairly well. But yeah, thanks to everyone listening as well for chiming
actually
in
the meantime, while we're riffing, you could leave any comments down in the live chat, and we'll try and
answer them.
Try and answer them indeed. Yeah. If you've any questions for us, we'll try and do that before Don comes back to us.
Anything on Felix Jones? That's a good question, actually. Yeah, Felix Jones obviously joined the Springboks squad as someone who Razzie's always really liked from his time in Munster, and he's going to be in as sort of a performance director or kind of a skills coach probably. In his role. He started to fill the role that Swiss de Bruin left kind of for personal reasons, and yeah, Razzie seems to like him.
Well, this is the thing, is that he was offered a skills coach position last year, and he didn't take it because he was still in Munster. We didn't actually love Felix Jones's tenure at Munster. He had the nominal title of backs coach, and Munster's backs, while being individually pretty talented, never really got a playoff, and there wasn't a whole lot of shape to it. So I don't know that Felix Jones is going to reinvent the wheel in that regard, but I think he's a guy who Razzie likes around, obviously respects him from his time in Munster. And maybe it's as simple as just likes to bounce ideas off him and chat to him.
Could be something like that. Kind of an Irish accent in the dressing room. You know, all these little intangibles that he probably just rates the guy being around, and
Yeah.
I'll trust Razzie is what I'll say on it. I don't know the ins and outs of how Felix Jones performs in that role. Like evidence-wise, as backs coach, yes, Munster underperformed in that area, but with Razzie they weren't. And if he rates him as a useful guy to have around, I see no evidence to think that that's not the case, because Razzie's got it pretty spot on thus far.
I just got another comment there from Terblanche, and he says, don't forget Scotland. They could cause upsets. Young team, their backs are very good. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Similarly, Japan.
Scotland and Japan, whoever comes out of that group, could be an awkward one for either the two behemoths who come out of the other group, the All Blacks or the
especially
Springboks.
if they're bruised and a little bit footsore and weary at all. Like both of those teams play with spark and speed, and can get plays off.
Scotland are an awesome team. Finn Russell is one of the most fun players to watch. If you watch that Scotland game against France last week, the amount of sort of nearly plays that Finn was getting off, his vision is like something from another world, and he will just throw the pass or kick the kick if he sees a chance to score. Awesome footballer.
Yeah, but then similarly,
Razzie's bringing him in as defense consultant. I saw that, but I actually think it's a looser role even than that. He had been an attack coach. I suspect it's just a guy, another head in the dressing room kind of thing. I don't know that he's. Obviously, they have, the name escapes me, but they have a very, very respected defense coach who is doing a wonderful job. So I think Felix Jones is just going to be, another voice.
Another voice, which is something that a lot of other teams are doing. Like Graham Henry's gone to Canada. There are a few guys joining panels. Jim Mallender going to, where does he go? In Scotland
right,
as well. So there are a few other... They're kind of recruiting other kind of fresh voices in advance of the World Cup, which is no bad thing. I think it's kind of proven that you do get a little bit of a boost when you get some new knowledge and new insight from new people. So yeah, I don't think it's a bad appointment at all for Felix Jones. I think it's great for Felix as well as being potentially good for South Africa.
We got a remark from Joe Lyons saying Munster a seconds at best feeder club for the Premier and only team in Ireland, Leinster. I respect it.
I love it. In fact, as being the Leinster fan I am, only mad for that kind of chat. But what I will say is, yes, the Munster have no excuse for having the lack of shape they have in the back line thus far. I would like to see them throw the ball around a bit more next season, because they have Carberry at 10, Murray at 9, like Scannell, Farrell distributing players in 10, 12 and 13. There's no reason they shouldn't get more plays off.
So anyway, guys, I think Don's Wi-Fi is gone.
Just gone and dropped. Yeah, so
I don't know that he's coming back. So we're probably just going to have to wrap this one up.
Yeah.
If you did enjoy this, if you're a fan of Don's, obviously, if you're not a fan of Don's, I'll subscribe away. But if you are a fan of his and want to know where to get more of us, it's youtube.com/Overlap Rugby podcast, or just search Overlap Rugby on YouTube. You'll get us. We do a long form podcast once a week, and then we chop that into sort of more consumable, smaller videos. That's our main gig. That's our channel. If you want to reach out for anything more formal, it's overlaprugbypodcast@gmail.com.
That's it. And then you can also tweet us.
Tweet us Overlap Rugby as well.
Yeah,
sometimes
engage on Twitter and that platform Twitter as well. But and do give Unbiased Rugby obviously a subscribe and a follow if you haven't already.
And a massive thanks to Don for hosting the stream. Shame
that he couldn't be here to say farewell as well. But we'll probably be back next week to go through. We might.
No, I'm not going to be around next week, so we'll have to take a week off next week.
We may have to. Okay,
we'll chat to Don about. But this will take 1 week off at least next week. But
we'll be back in advance of the World Cup anyway.
Most certainly
to break down some more stuff.
Yes.
But all right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
See you again.
See you, folks.
Bye.